When we did the hand exercise, what stood out to me the most was the focus on what you put on the outside of the hand and what was important to you. A little bit of a struggle of what was important outside of family and friends, but it was easy to pull in pets because pets do make life easier, and work seems like it's always there considering my age.
Going back to March of 2020, how would you say when the lockdown first happened, what was your immediate thoughts? How are you feeling then? What was going through your mind?
My immediate thought was confusion because the media had its take on what was going on. You were seeing another side of what was happening. And then some people were out of work. Now, as far as me and my household, everyone here was considered an essential worker. And my job immediately pivoted us to work remote. So ironically, lockdown happened the same time as my daughter's birthday. And I was off work anyway because of it. Had a sixth sense that maybe I need to clean my desk, pack up. We were relocating offices. So I had cleared my desk, only business things were there, and I grabbed it in my mind what I thought was important and to do my job with me before I went on vacation. So when Monday came around, we couldn't go in the office and pick up our things. So that was the one thing, was like, well, how are we going to do our job because we don't have certain things? And then the next thought was, if we're locked down, well, what does that exactly mean? Can I still go get food? How am I going to get clothes? I do tend to overthink sometimes. So it's like, well, what if an emergency happened and I need a whole new wardrobe? Like, what am I supposed to do? And randomly, my shoe broke and I needed to get a new shoe, but the malls were closed. So here goes online shopping, right? So it was all of those, to some people, the non-factor things was where my mind drifted to. It wasn't so much of my elderly grandparents, of, being concerned for them and their safety and things of that nature, or my kids. It was more so of, well, let's follow the protocols. Let's wear the masks. Let's keep our hands washed. Let's stay away from people. Give me my 6 feet. I've actually still wish people gave you your 6 feet and continue doing what we did. And for my mental health, I incorporated going somewhere every day. That was essential.
So what was that adjustment of going out to the now just being at home?
So super random. The biggest adjustment of the now to me that I really did worry about, so it's kind of like back to your last question, was my hair. Because eventually, not immediately, hair salons didn't close and nail salons, but I do enjoy the beauty industry. And I sat with a set of acrylic nails that I had to figure out how to get off because couldn't go and get a fill-in. Had to figure out how to maintain my own hair and my daughter's hair because we couldn't go to the hair salon and get that done. And being a person of color, it's not exactly that easy to manage. So thinking back then, it was the fact of your options were limited, right? All you had was Walmart, Target, learning the office store, the pet store, but you didn't have the mall or some of the things that we take as a leisurely place to go to get your outings. You had your restaurant, but you didn't get the sit down dining experience. Instead, it was to go and bringing things to your car, opening your trunk or your hatch, put things in. So for me, the biggest adjustment was that what can I do exactly today, opposed to, oh, I'm bored, let's go see what I can find.
From your child going from public school to now school at home, how would you say the adjustment to that and the struggle that came with that?
That's a funny story to bring up and discuss. So that was part of COVID, and I've completely put that in the back burner of my mind. My child actually has an IEP, meaning that she learns differently, and we have to have assistance in order for her to receive her education. So we had just got things finalized before COVID took place. And then here we go to remote learning. So what ended up happening, my job was very gracious with us and understood that kids were home. Some people were out of work and everything. So I had the flexibility to actually be the teacher. I was able to hover over her, help be the teacher's assistant, so to speak, during the classes, which landed me a role on the school improvement committee that I didn't ask for. I'm still on it to this day. And that also landed me into the PTO board because of my assistance in that year to help her. So for us, I liked her being home because I had more control over her education. But it was challenging for her to do it. And now going back in school, my biggest complaint is the germs and the sanitation, because you're no longer required to wear a mask. You're no longer cleaning the desk and all those things. And as soon as they opened back up, she was sick 2 weeks later with a cold. The whole time during lockdown, none of us were sick. We didn't have a cold. We didn't have anything. And as soon as she goes back to school, it spirals through the house. And even this year, it's the same thing. She's the one that's at school, and it's spiraling back through the house that we have the sniffles and things. But people don't want to think of that as an issue because they're so focused on COVID and not the common cold.
Going back to when you said there were some challenges, what were those challenges exactly?
So we're home, right? We have TVs in our house. We have YouTube. We have our phones. And my daughter thought that she could do both. So she would slide her phone up while the teacher's teaching. Sometimes she would cut her camera off. My daughter would fall asleep during class. And I still had to do my job as well. So it wasn't like I could hover over her school day for the 7 hours while I'm working the 8. So the adjustment for me was starting my day a little bit earlier so I could get something done before she had to be online at 8 and then, offline at 3. So the biggest challenge was just making sure that I could meet my deliverables for my job and excel, and then also make sure that she's doing what she's supposed to remain on task. And then keeping the communication with her teacher that, hey, we've done this, we did that, we don't understand this, can you help us with that? And that was a lag, so to speak, because the teacher wasn't exactly available for one-on-one talk every second of the day. Teacher still had her 20 kids plus to teach.
So how did you solve that issue of not being able to reach a teacher and have to figure it out? What was one of your...
Google has become my best friend. Between Google and YouTube, if we couldn't get a hold of her, we would immediately go that way and see what we could get, take notes. I would email her teacher as well, and her teacher would get back and text because she had all that available, and with the respect of responding back in 24 hours, if not sooner. And her teacher was very organized. So if it wasn't for her having that teacher, I'm pretty sure it could have been different, because a lot of parents don't have that same success story because of the educator that their child was assigned. But we had a great collaboration that it was easy for us to work together.
What are your thoughts of how COVID stands today?
So I really think that people are living in the illusion that COVID is something of the past and is behind us. And I don't think it's exactly true. I think COVID is a virus that's been around and manifested in a way that we weren't prepared for. And I believe that it's going to continue to be a virus that is going to manifest in different ways. So while we have vaccines and other protocols in place that perhaps we don't need to be as stringent with masking, I think that the concern is still there, and it shouldn't be something that we negate in all honesty. If anything that I wish we could go back to, I wish that we could go back to, like I said earlier, just sanitizing our areas, because I believe that people were much healthier overall whenever we were keeping things clean, opposed to reverting back to those behaviors that we had previously.
How would you say your relationships changed, or have they changed, with family and friends?
Well, relationships did change with family, because before COVID, it was only a car ride, 4 hours to go visit them. And then when COVID hit, it was, stay away. You don't know who you've been around. You don't want to, transfer this. And like I mentioned, I have elderly grandparents. And I didn't want to give them anything by coming from an unfamiliar environment to them. But we remained in contact via phone. What COVID taught me was that perhaps I don't need to spend so much time with extended family, and I can enjoy myself at home and, save the time and the energy on your body That's been very essential to me. As far as people in the household, I learned that because when you spend more time with people, you are able to see more of their unfavorable characteristics as well as favorable characteristics. And it taught me that perhaps it's okay to sever some ties with people and identify what behaviors may not be that healthy for everyone else around.
So what would you say changed going into work from 2020 to now 2022?
So COVID showed my employer that you can produce and still earn revenue working at home. Now, the company that I work for openly admits that they are a work from work company and they will not be reducing their size for remote workers, and they will continue to have people in an office space because they believe that collaboration is important. I learned that flexibility is what's more important. So if you were to compare my children, my oldest can reflect on earlier in my career how he had to come to work with me, right? Or he was always the last kid to be picked up from daycare because I had to work. Well, fast forwarded in the 10 years with his sister, now I have remote capabilities. So I'm more available for school events. I'm more available for homework. As mentioned, I was more available to do remote school. And it's, in all honesty, the youngest is a little spoiled because there's things that has evolved over time that wasn't visible then. So if you take back to 2020 and bringing it to 2022, my employer has even implemented what they call a sabbatical program for people that have been with the company longer than 15 years. You get 4 weeks, 6 weeks, or 9 weeks, depending on your tenure, that you can take time off 100% paid to pursue whatever you want to pursue because they're seeing that burnout is real. I'll admit that I was burnt out. I was stressed about the commute. I'm new to the Charlotte area and having to navigate the traffic, the parking. I work uptown, and getting familiar with where things were located. All of that was a level of stress and anxiety because it was an unknown environment when I left a small office environment where you just find a parking space, swipe your badge and go in. So coming out of COVID or, into the new phase of COVID, how I prefer to put it, and then now being an official remote worker, it's kind of sound like I'm contradicting myself, but I was able to remain a remote worker. It's allowed our company to see that different life circumstances can allow people to still work from home and do what they need to do. We use tools such as WebEx. We have instant communicator. We have emails. We still collaborate via phone. We have started face-to-face interactions again because it is true. I will admit that going in person, some of the things that's like an email swirl that can take hours throughout the day and when someone gets to it, opposed to being in an office and someone pops by your desk or your office and ask a quick question, get it done on site. There's definitely a difference. And I do have to govern myself differently to make sure I get things done and have availability.
Would you say some of your characteristics have changed from the start of COVID to now?
In some ways, yes. In some ways, no. So what COVID taught me and being home more was being more aware of, people's feelings and their demeanors and their thoughts. Whereas before I'm in the office, you can read people pretty well, seeing them face to face, but COVID, all you could rely on was their voice. So if it is a day, if I'm speaking in this tone because it is later in the evening versus in the midday where I tend to thrive, it's like, hey, how are you? Da 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 da. Whereas in the evening, you're kind of dragging a little bit more because you're tired, or your coworker could be sick or going through something. Depending on how often you talk to one another, you could about sense it in the tone of their voice. So I will say that I've gained a form of intuition around people, and then trying to be socially aware, not just with myself, but with other people too. Because some people are able to take some information that is shared and, process it one ear and out the other, whereas other people, because of COVID and the loss, they feel differently about certain things that may be said, if that makes sense.
How did you feel?
What about COVID? I still just confused. It was, what is this? Why is this? I didn't like staying home. I'll tell you that, because I like to shop. And therefore develop my own way to still do what I like to do. I wasn't fearful of, people dying and stuff. There was probably one person that was kind of close that passed unexpectedly due to COVID. And that was unsettling. For the way everything went, but being a believer of faith, I understand that everyone has a time and you never know when that is done with. So you can't look at the way people go opposed to the time that was allowed from a spiritual perspective for them.
What are some good outcomes that came from being in a pandemic for almost 3 years?
Good outcomes? Well, I got a raise. Got a really good raise because of the pandemic and all of that. The company took time and realized that people weren't paid fairly, plus the post-inflation that's going on too, as well as the impeding recession. I think we're in one, but separate topic. So my job attempted to be proactive and warranted an off-cycle increase for people. So I got a decent raise. Mental clarity. Oh my gosh, being home, I've been able to incorporate time to journal more, read more, not so much be TV, but I am your Netflix person. You ever want to know a series? I have a whole running list because still binge watching a lot of things. Spending time with my family more. I'm able to pick my daughter up from school every day. Sadly, I won't even say sadly because time goes by really fast, but it's one of the things I take great pride in being able to pick her up most of the time every day from school without paying for daycare. Because if it was COVID, I wouldn't be working from home and I would be paying an after school bill and I would be stressed about how I'm going to get from uptown to a location to pick her up by 6 o'clock. So not having that pressure has made the world of difference here. Back to the mental clarity. I feel like everything is full circle in my life right now. That COVID, I won't say that it was a negative experience here because we worked the whole time. There was no loss of income. Was able to get a new car. So, and it was not exactly a need, it was a want. So that's a good feeling. Just to be able to do that, able to do a little bit of traveling. My version of traveling may not be the same as some, but just having the ability to do so when things started opening up felt good to do.
Would you say you've gone through any struggles through COVID?
Not really. Any struggles I went through was before COVID. Ironically, not really during.
What have you learned going through the pandemic?
So, going through the pandemic has taught me the biggest thing is patience. Don't look at things as how you perceive it and that it's about you. So prime example today at school was volunteering and parents were trying to early dismiss their kids and they were trying to just walk into the schoolhouse. Well, that's another fear in 2022 is that people do come to school with weapons and they don't mind hurting children and teachers. So it's important to keep everyone safe. So stopping parents and, one parent tried to get huffy and like, I've been waiting 20 minutes for my kid. And going in the office like, hey, parents looking for child, this is the name, et cetera, et cetera. And they're like, gotta hold on. There's only 2 people working a desk. And I'm like, I understand that. And I was like, really and truly, school has over 1,100 kids. So what makes you think that that the whole world should revolve around my one kid and my one need, whether if I'm just trying to start my weekend early or I have a doctor's appointment or whatever the case may be. This world isn't designed to accommodate Shannon. There's so many other people around. I can't say that I had that type of awareness previously, but being locked down has really got me at a place to think differently about what's going on around me, how it impacts others, and not to be so stuck on how this impacts me.